Alright, welcome back everyone. Today we have the scandal that broke the 90s, okay? The scandal that broke the I mean, I don't know. In the thumbnail, they had a picture of Bill Clinton, but I don't know. I don't know what that right there might involve, so let's go ahead and see. Hope you guys are doing fine. Let's get it going.
But please, don't tell Mrs. Clinton. Jim, let me tell you something. There's going to be a whole bunch of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
All right, you wanted this, you little freak, so here we go. You want to hear about one of the weirdest political scandals in history? Well, first we have to start at the start of Clinton's political career. Bill Clinton's rise to the White House was frankly ridiculously simple. Only 3 years after graduating law school, he ran for Attorney General of Arkansas and somehow won. And only 2 years later, he ran for governor and won at only 32. It really is that easy for some people. In '92, Clinton decided to run for president, beating George H.W. Bush and some random billionaire who got almost 20 million votes somehow. You'd think the third youngest president in history would have a tough time in office due to lack of experience, but no! The US enjoyed more peace and economic well-being than at any point in its history, and that's not me saying that, that's the White House's historian saying that. He had the lowest unemployment in modern times, low inflation, the highest home ownership ever, reduced crime rates, and achieved a budget surplus. It really is that easy for some people. By his second term, there was really nothing to hate about the guy, which is why some people really hated him. But as it turns out, midway through his second term, they'd find a pretty good reason. Okay, so here's where things are gonna get sticky. I'm gonna have to keep this as PG as possible in order to not rock the boat. Ironically, just like the news in the 90s did. The only difference is, at least they knew they'd get paid. Just be sure to use your imagination to its fullest extent today. Or maybe don't actually, I don't know, you guys wanted this. Privately, Clinton was closer to Ray J than LBJ, if you know what I'm saying. Scholars today may describe him as having mad riz and hella huzz. Throughout old Bill's life, he was a hard dog to keep on the porch and would experience bimbo eruptions. Again, not my words, his wife Hillary's. This would get Clinton into some trouble during his presidency, as a woman named Paula Jones brought a lawsuit against him. She alleged that when he was governor of Arkansas, he had, shown off his Arkansas to her without her consent. Despite this, the case was floundering. Luckily, they knew of other women who supposedly had contact with Clinton.
I know you don't think you're good enough for me, but believe me.
Oh yeah, he was in an episode
So in a
of Simpson,
desperate
right?
effort, they wrote up a list of names to be brought before the court and testify about Clinton's conduct. One of those names was Monica Lewinsky. In July of '95, Monica Lewinsky was a bright-eyed college grad ready to take on Washington. At only 21, she'd managed to land an internship at the White House. Monica was young, ambitious, and a bit flirtatious, as any single college grad may be. But instead of her dating pool consisting of guys who still go to frat parties at 24, like most women her age,
Howdy do, fellow kids.
Lewinsky had access to literally the most powerful man on earth. And who could resist this? So class, what do we get when we add Clinton's rambunctious behavior with a new flirtatious intern multiplied by a few minutes alone together? Do I need to do the math? It of course equals a national crisis unlike anything the nation had ever seen. In total, the pair would have 10 separate workplace meetings, including
the Family Guy episode.
in the Oval Office somehow, and while Clinton was on the phone. Man, they just don't make presidents like they used to. After around 5 months, the deputy chief of staff, who had probably figured out what was going on at this point, decided to move Lewinsky to the Pentagon. Apart from a brief rekindling in '97, this would be the end of the two's crude rendezvous, and likely would have been the end of our story, if not for the age-old enemy of women with secrets: other trifling-ass women. While at the Pentagon, Lewinsky met a woman named Linda Tripp. Despite Tripp being 24 years older than her, age gaps had never really bothered Monica, so they became friends. Tripp had also worked in the White House, and she did not like Clinton. So when Monica started telling her about an affair the two had, for some reason, Tripp went and bought a tape recorder. She began recording hours of phone conversations with Monica, getting every gory detail she could. Eventually, she reached out to the lawyers on the Jones case, which is how they knew to put Monica Monica's name on the list later that year. Now, apart from this being a creepy betrayal of trust, recording phone calls was illegal in Tripp's home state of Maryland. But a Maryland court later ruled that since Tripp didn't know about the law, it was okay for her to break it, I guess. Which will be my defense when I go 90 through a school zone in Baltimore. Eventually, Monica tells Tripp that she's been holding onto a blue dress that contained a, presidential stain on it as a souvenir, which, can I just point out, was completely unnecessary. Clinton had given her numerous gifts. It's not like this was the only thing she had to remember him by, but maybe you ladies cook it up differently, I don't know. But Tripp had found her smoking gun. She immediately called another friend and they began plotting ways to steal the dress before realizing that was a terrible idea. Instead, she encouraged Lewinsky to never wash it in case the affair went public and Clinton called her a liar. When Monica told her surely it would never come to that, Tripp said, well, actually it makes you look really fat and you should never wear it again anyway, so there's no point in washing it, haha. Fast forward a bit to the end of 97, and we're back to the Jones trial releasing a list of names that they want to come testify. Clinton was aware of the Jones case, so when Lewinsky's name came up, he talked to her about it. Clinton encouraged her to sign an affidavit, which is just a written statement signed under oath. That way, she wouldn't have to go testify. Now, Clinton didn't tell Lewinsky to lie about the affair, but he didn't need to. Obviously, neither one of them wanted this to get out. So Lewinsky signed an affidavit legally stating that her and the president hadn't messed around with the lights down. This, kids, is what's known as perjury. So when the Jones lawyers got the affidavit, they knew Lewinsky was lying. This now went beyond a misconduct case. Lewinsky and Clinton might have just broken the law. So they decided to get the feds involved. Kenneth Starr was an investigator for the Office of Independent Counsel, basically just feds who investigate other feds. And he was investigating the biggest fed of all, the president. He was looking into the Whitewater case. What's that? An extremely confusing financial scandal the Clintons may or may not have been involved in that doesn't matter at all. Point is, he was a federal agent investigating Clinton, but after spending millions on the investigation, he had nothing. So when he suddenly received more than 20 hours of recorded phone conversations about a presidential affair from Tripp and the Jones lawyers, he knew he had to get involved. In January of 98, Lewinsky told Tripp more about the affair, except this time the FBI was listening too. A few days later, Tripp invited Monica to have lunch at a local mall. When she showed up, the FBI pounced, bringing her to a nearby hotel. There, for the next 11 hours, investigators would try to press her into cooperating with them. They demanded that she agree to wear a wire to record her conversations with Clinton, threatening that she could face up to 27 years in jail for perjury and obstruction of justice. Yet she refused. And honestly, she's kind of a real one for that. But this was all perfectly timed, as Clinton had to go testify in the Jones case the next day. He had no idea about Lewinsky getting got, so when Jones's lawyers started questioning him, describing specific situations and gifts, he was caught off guard.
I got you now, you fucking moron bitch.
He claimed that they never had an affair, that he couldn't even remember being alone together, and that nothing remarkable had happened between the two. Ouch. But of course, he was lying under oath, which of course is illegal. Soon after, news leaked that the president may have had an affair with an intern. The cat was out of the bag, and the media went berserk. It wasn't long before the name Monica Lewinsky was plastered over every tabloid and news headline. For months, the story seemed to grip the nation. Speculation ran rampant. Rumors of other interns having presidential pardons. Rumors of other witnesses. The White House denied the allegations outright, with Clinton going on TV to say his now famous line. You know it, you love it.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Woo! You tell him, Bill. The White House and Clinton's allies accused the media of spreading fake stories. Hillary claimed it was all a vast right-wing conspiracy, but it wouldn't be long before 3 more women came forward with stories of Clinton's handsiness. Clearly, the heat was on. This was all exactly what Ken Starr had been waiting for. Beyond all the embarrassing info, Starr knew that Clinton had lied on the stand, but he still had no proof. Lewinsky could say they had an affair all she wanted, but that's not evidence. He needed something physical, something he could show a jury. Something like, say, a blue dress that contained the president's decrees on it that someone had been holding on to for some strange reason.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we print everything you need to brand your business? We print banners and signs that help you stand out, and must-have merch like tote bags, t-shirts, and hoodies. If you need it, we print it. Print it all with 20% off for new customers with code new 20 at Vistaprint.ca.
Lewinsky was, believe it or not, having a terrible time with all of this. With the rise of the internet, it seemed like everyone was making fun of her. And to be quite frank, she was right. Everyone was. For months. People constantly joked about her weight, her appearance, that she was insane. She was portrayed as a crazed bimbo, love-struck with the righteous Bill Clinton, who sucked him in like a siren at sea. So to try to get her mind off of all of this, her lawyer decided to treat her to a Vanity Fair photo shoot on the West Coast. He said that her libido was suffering and that he liked to pamper her when he could.
What the
And it
hell?
went over with the public just about as well as you'd expect, and she got new lawyers shortly after. But it wasn't just worldwide embarrassment. Lewinsky was facing jail time for perjury, but she was all Ken Starr and the investigators had. Lewinsky was their only chance at getting proof. They needed that dress. But her lawyers were adamant that she wouldn't plead guilty to anything or end up in a cell. So in July of '98, the two sides came up with a deal. In exchange for handing over the dress, Lewinsky would get immunity. Once they got it, a blood sample from Clinton would prove that the DNA on it was his. There was no denying it now. Clinton had not only had an affair in the Oval Office, but committed a crime trying to cover it up. In August, Lewinsky would testify before a
That's crazy, bro.
There was no denying it now. Clinton had not only had an affair in the Oval Office, but committed a crime trying to cover it up.
Yo, in the Oval Office too, damn.
August, Lewinsky would testify before a grand jury about the affair, stating the details along with the attempted cover-up. Clinton would face the same jury about a week later, but he would sort of beat around the bush, no pun intended. He insisted that he had not actually lied, that while they had inappropriate intimate contact, it didn't count as sexual relations somehow, that his definition of alone was different from everyone else's, and famously stated that it depends on what your definition of the word is. Once his grilling was over, he would address the nation on TV and finally admit what many already knew.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong.
Many congressmen strongly condemned the president, letting him know he'd been a real bad boy, as if they hadn't done worse. And Republicans were riled up to start an impeachment. But what the hell's an impeachment anyways? In order to impeach a president, the House of Representatives has to draw up criminal charges against them. If the majority votes in favor of the charges, the president is impeached. But that doesn't mean they're removed from office. All it means is that the Senate will hold a trial against the president to see if they're actually guilty of these high crimes or misdemeanors. If 2/3 of the Senate votes that they are, then the president is removed. Ken Starr would submit his final 445-page report to Congress, listing 11 impeachable offenses. Yet it only mentioned Whitewater a handful of times, despite that being what the report was supposed to be about. But it did include many details that some thought were completely unnecessary and just there to embarrass Clinton. Was that true? Well, the report detailed an instance between the two where a cigar was used for, non-smoking purposes. Does that matter at all to Clinton obstructing justice? You decide. Regardless, it seemed like the House would vote to impeach. Now you may be thinking, yeah, this all wasn't very gamer of him, but it's not very impeachable, you know what I mean? Was this basically just a hit job by his enemies to make the president look bad? Whether that's true or not, it sure seemed to be what most Americans thought. Case in point, the midterm elections were happening during all of this, and Republicans expected a landslide. They were the ones leading the charge against this criminal president, after all.
It's me, Bill Clinton. Go to skin.com.
But when the results came in, not only was it not a landslide, they gained 0 seats in the Senate and lost 5 in the House. A complete upset. For you see, despite how big of a deal this was to the media in Washington, the American people didn't seem to actually care. While sure they kept up with the news, most
That has nothing to do with us.
In fact, his approval ratings were higher than ever. Republicans had overplayed their hand. Most polls showed that voters didn't want an impeachment.
Mr. President, why do you think the American public has continued to support you throughout these impeachment proceedings?
Oh, probably because you're so fat.
Over the months, Americans were forced to have hard conversations about what they expected from their leaders. And it seemed that while they didn't approve of his personal life, they damn sure approved of his professional one. Surprisingly, Clinton's biggest supporters were women. Polls showed that 50% of women blamed the whole ordeal on the right wing. Clinton's supported female issues like abortion rights, and they supported him in turn. Worse yet for Republicans, Clinton would settle the Jones case out of court, paying her $850,000 and never admitting guilt. Just before the House voted for impeachment, Clinton ordered missile strikes on Iraq for other reasons, delaying the vote. Nothing like the classic American tradition of bombing the Middle East to get a president's mind off things. But the vote came all the same, and despite its unpopularity, it passed. For only the second time in American history, the president had been put in a peach. The House had only impeached Clinton on 2 accounts. One for lying under oath for saying that he and Lewinsky hadn't hailed to the chief, and another for obstruction of justice for tampering with witnesses like Lewinsky and his secretary. The Constitution states that the president can be removed for high crimes and misdemeanors, so the trial wasn't really about if he did it, because I mean, come on, everyone knew he did it. It was whether or not he should be removed for doing it. The Senate opened the trial in January of '99, and it was really boring, reportedly putting some senators to sleep. It was pretty clear from the beginning that 2/3 of senators were not going to vote to remove him. At this point, it was all for show. The prosecutors argued that Clinton had clearly committed a crime, so he should be removed. Clinton's side argued that despite the bad conduct, not gonna vote to remove him. At this point, it was all for show. The prosecutors argued that Clinton had clearly committed a crime, so he should be removed. Clinton's side argued that despite the bad conduct, it wasn't removal worthy, and after a month of trial, the Senate agreed. Clinton was found not guilty. 55 senators, including 10 Republicans, voted to acquit on perjury. The vote was 50-50 on obstruction, but still nowhere close to the 2/3 needed for removal. After everything, the president would remain the president. Clinton would later address the nation, calling on America to redirect its focus to the future. Despite its lackluster conclusion, the aftermath changed history and American culture forever. As I said in my 2000 election video, which you should go watch, like and subscribe, Al Gore was afraid of campaigning with Clinton due to the scandal, which may have cost him the presidency. This was the beginning of the end for the clutching your pearls prudeness of the 80s and 90s, with topics like this becoming less taboo to talk about. News media changed as well, with the birth of argument culture, where commenting on the news became more important than actually reporting on it. But its biggest impact was on Clinton's legacy. I mean, I didn't know all the accomplishments this dude had. I just knew him as the funny quote guy. And maybe for that other thing.
Is this Linda Tripp?
Oh my god.
You shouldn't have talked, you stupid bitch! I hope you die!
And you gotta feel for Lewinsky. Most agree that she wasn't a victim. She knew what she was doing. But looking back on it, it's just sad. There was an undeniable power dynamic between the two, both in age and position, at her first job no less. And one of her only friends that she trusted with this was a woman in her 40s who completely betrayed her. And while they both did a bad thing,
for real, recording these conversations,
was still mostly beloved, while she was the most ridiculed person on earth. Lewinsky has since become a large anti-bullying advocate and has reconsidered the power dynamic at play during their relationship. While what they did was immoral, it wasn't an abuse of power. At the end of the day, the whole ordeal was just really stupid. When it's all said and done, there's an important lesson to be learned here. If you're gonna play spin the bottle with the most powerful man on earth, maybe hit the dry cleaners afterwards. Comment what you want to see next, like, subscribe, bye-bye.
Make sure your DNA's not on it, but damn, bro, I didn't even know about this story, but shit. So damn, a cheating scandal, you know, I mean, an affair scandal, you know, and then, you know, his quote-unquote actions to cover it up, and then, you know, linked to some crimes, whatever, you know, presidency at risk, whatever, but, you know, nothing really happened. He was acquitted, still stayed president, whatever. But hey, anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.